Hello and welcome back to Bombshells, the first episode under Keir Starmer's Britain. I'm Fleur Elizabeth.
And I'm Amy Shepherd.
And today we are joined by the man behind Guido Fawkes. It's Paul Staines.
Hi girls.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. Bit worried I'm going to be very hot by the end of this.
You are.
You just get a bit
Buckle up.
warm. Did you come here on the Lime bike as usual?
No,
or?
I didn't. No, I came via an Uber.
No, you've got a party to go to tonight.
Yes.
Yeah. So me and Paul first met, I don't know if you know this, when I trialled for a job at Gido.
You did?
Yeah.
Didn't you intern for us a week?
Yes,
And,
yeah.
you didn't hire her. Why not?
Well, we did ask her to come back for a second week and she couldn't, I think.
I know, I couldn't,
So,
yeah.
you know, there was a structural problem there.
Yeah.
It was very fair though, like, Gido pumps out stories like no one else, and I wasn't able to get them at that speed.
Well,
But-
you would never be able to. So my experience with people now, I've had quite a few people come through over the last 20 years, is that you're pretty useless for 6 months, to be honest. So I don't expect people on the first day to be performing as well as you would be after a few years. So the current crop, Max and Eleanor, they are just about up to speed now. A year later.
Yeah, well, you've obviously had some like big names come through there.
Well, yeah. So Harry Cole, I suppose, has done very well. In fact, you know, there's a lot of people who've done very well. The list is pretty long. I could go through it, but people don't realise that not everyone succeeds, and the names you don't know who got fired pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I don't have a 100% hit rate.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It was interesting because I remember when we were arranging me coming in for the week and I was at university and you were quite interested in how I was sort of prepared to drop out just to get a job, because I don't think you're 100% on board with this sort of culture where everyone goes to university. And we had...
Got to be careful. One of my daughters doesn't want to go to university.
Oh, right, okay. But we had Stephen Edgington on as one of our first guests who didn't go and has been very successful without that. And he was saying that it's almost can be a bit of a hindrance, and you know the way that you're taught to write academically does not translate well to journalism. So what do you think about that?
I dropped out. You know, a lot of, you know, famously Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all those people are dropouts, right, of one kind or another. I think it's worth doing for a lot of people just for the 3 years of socialising, networking, and the in-between full adulthood and, you know, escaping from your parents' financial constraints and just basically having a good time. Unless you're doing something vocational, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point doing a law degree if you want to be a lawyer. You're still going to have to do a conversion course. It barely gets you any advantages. I suppose if you are doing something technical, you know, like medicine, I pretty think much you should go to university.
You know.
But the best computer scientists and geeks and coders don't necessarily all go to Stanford.
No.
Yeah. But in terms of
Teach themselves.
becoming a journalist, do you think it's a help or a hindrance, or neither?
For political journalism, the only thing is, I think it's useful if you've, for me, speaking for what we do, and I do take a lot of people straight out of college, if they've been involved in student politics, they've got some kind of idea of the continuum of politics and, you know, left, right and basic understanding, which they might not if they've just read the papers. So it's advantageous from that point of view. They might have worked for an MP and stuff like that. That helps. But I know that a lot of editors of newspapers really like the people who start at 18 and have done court reporting for their local paper and stuff like that.
I know for a fact that Nigel Farage refuses to hire anybody who's been to university because they come out lacking some kind of good work ethic, and they're quite demanding and entitled.
I'm not naming any names, Eleanor, but some people don't understand that it's a full-time job, or it needs 52 weeks. Not 52 weeks. It's 46 weeks a year, and it comes quite a shock to the system when they don't have 3 months off.
Yeah. Honestly, I found that when I started full-time work.
Speaking speaking for my kids are very strained by we make them get summer jobs always. Their allowance is cut off, and it's good for the soul. But when they had to work in an ice cream shop 5 days a week, they were like, "Oh, I have to get up every morning. It's terrible. I have to clean up and I have to deal with horrible people." I said, "Yeah, that's what's working, and it's good. It's good for you."
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. I always found that people I came across when I was at university who'd never even had a part-time job, like, quite difficult to relate to, because I don't know, but you have to be self-motivated to go to university lectures, so you've got to pull that from somewhere different from being to school. Anyway, you began Gido in the 2000s when
2004, so it's 20 years this year. In
wow,
September.
Happy birthday.
Well, we will be having a birthday party.
Oh, can't wait to come. But this was when blogging culture was very different and in some senses more prominent. Yourself and people like Anna Raccoon were able to coordinate campaigns on behalf of people like Nick Hogan, the pub landlord, on the smoking ban. Do you consider that era to be the heyday, and how does it compare to like the Substack culture of the present?
It's similar, I suppose, to the Substack culture. Substack, some people are managing to monetize it quite successfully. There was no monetization strategy in the early days, and I was looking to America and Drudge and a website called Wonket. That was a big thing in those days. And their monetization strategies were very different. Wonket basically ended up becoming Anna, whose surname I forget, became a CNN kind of star. And Drudge, who hasn't changed one little bit since the 90s and makes an absolute fortune still, has a very rudimentary website and just has a little 3-man ad sales team and does very well. So there was no monetization those days. Everyone did it for love, and their obsessions. There were a lot of specialists, and a lot of people who didn't stick it out but ended up going into mainstream journalism. Good luck to them.
Yeah.
Ian Dale was probably a classic example of that, where he used the blog to make his media personality sort of bigger.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's the risk with Substack, like instant monetization, that people will just like lean into what they think their subscribers want to hear to get more money. Yeah,
that's the problem with all these. If you support our journalism, give us some money. It pulls you towards extremes, and you, to please the audience, you and to get their money, you end up being pulled in places that perhaps it's not wise to go. And we often annoy our readers, on quite a lot of issues. And if we were worried about losing revenue because of it, it wouldn't happen. So I've seen this actually happen recently with Novara, where Novara Media has gone off the sort of classic left-wing slant into a few areas. Aaron Bastani, regular GB News appearances, and it's really annoying a lot of his subscribers. And the I'm going to cancel my subscription kind of feedback he's getting probably isn't so good.
But does putting the more left-wing side of things across and irritating your readers and watchers provide a little bit of protection with longevity? Because at the end of the day, people will kind of rely on
I don't think we ever put anything left-wing forward. But, for instance, we were a bit idiosyncratic where we kind of supported Scottish nationalism or, self-determination, I'd call it.
Oh, okay.
So,
controversial.
Well, I think, and obviously I'm Irish, I support United Ireland. So there are some things that really do upset our readers, and there was a lot of abuse on that. And we don't really push it very hard, but I'm a Republican.
But in long term, I think people do value to feel challenged and stuff, and they kind of trust it more. Subconsciously trust you more.
Also, if you're authentic, it does show through.
It does.
Whereas if we pretended, it doesn't really work. And when I've hired people who, let's say, turned out to be a little bit more left of centre than I realised, and they tried to write in the Gido voice, it would come over like a parody drunk Nigel Farage, you know. And I know
That's so
Nigel Farage, and I've been drunk with him, and he doesn't sound like you might think if
Very
you're
interesting.
from that part of the world.
But do you think Conservative blogging will become more prominent now that the Labour Party back in power?
A lot of people have been asking me this, including people who work with us, and I think it'll be more fun. It'll be good for traffic.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more fun when you're an insurgent. You know, to say that I haven't enjoyed the last couple of years of Conservative administration would be an understatement. But then we were kind of attacking the government from the right already. So,
Yeah.
but it's you know, it's more fun when you're on the underdog
Yeah.
and the insurgent side. And I think the right is going to be on its back feet for a few years.
What to come now?
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think. Well, it's not any great insight. Tories are out for at least one term. They've got to refigure and reconstitute and deal with the strategic problem of having a exposed right flank.
Yeah. So how do you think the Conservative Party will kind of recalibrate now?
Have you ever seen a chicken running around without its head on it? I think that's how it will go.
Okay.
I was at the
Yeah,
Spectator
agree.
party last night, and there were like 5 candidates pressing the flesh,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking, oh God, what a year! it's
Does
gonna be.
anyone have some kind of strategic capability
No.
that's going to be enough to kind
I
of
was at PopCon yesterday.
actually focus the party on anything?
They don't know what's going on.
It doesn't seem like they do.
Every faction is screwed up in some way.
They don't have a leader in any way, shape, or form.
That's true.
My guess is that the next Conservative Prime Minister is not in Parliament right now.
That's my guess too.
That somewhere in EC1, working in a tech startup or a hedge
I don't think
fund,
that.
is somebody who is going to think, I'm going to give a go at
That's
politics."
exciting.
You know, I just sorry everybody who's in politics right now, but I think it's quite
Oh,
possible.
I like it. I've perked up.
No, my
Have you?
my prediction's slightly different, but
Okay.
I'm going to keep it under wraps in case I embarrass myself.
Why did we write it down in an envelope and then save it for years and then
Yeah.
I open it?
We can do that.
Hopefully this podcast is going on like that in a year's time.
I'm just about to collect on a bet from 2016
Oh, really?
with Anand Menon, the guy who runs UK and Changing Europe, who is a Remainer, you know, neutral, I think he claims to be, but he didn't deny it. And just after the referendum, I bet him that before the next general election, the British GDP would grow more than French GDP. He's like, no way, that's not possible. And if you remember, it was supposed to collapse and all the predictions and that. Anyway, if you do the numbers, we didn't even bother doing the numbers actually. I texted him and said, shall I do the calculation or shall you just buy me dinner? And he said, I'll buy you dinner. Bloody French.
Do you think that Keir Starmer will be more aggressive with press regulation? I know this is something that's interesting with GB News as well, which hasn't existed under a Labour government.
Well, I think didn't Lisa Nandy get the job, didn't she? Who got the job? Because Thangham was knocked out by
I don't know.
the Palestinians.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be good for press freedom. Although he is a liberal at heart, to be fair. He is, you know...
Really?
Oh, yeah, he is kind of a liberal. I mean, he did work for the National Council for Civil Liberties, you know, where he represented me. He was my lawyer. I think he might do Leveson too, if you know what that means.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
So,
I think he'll revisit that.
so there is a conspiracy theory, which I couldn't possibly endorse, that the Sun's shift might be related to not doing Leveson 2. But, I mean, that would be a conspiracy theory, surely.
Well,
He did prosecute a lot of Sun journalists, so it's kind of... I
Yeah.
was very surprised that Rupert Murdoch endorsed Starmer.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I know. I mean, my fear is looking at the way Scotland has gone with what is classed as hate. You know, I think 5 years from now, could we do this? I might be being a huge pessimist, but
The gulag for you girls.
yeah.
Well, certainly.
See ya.
I expect, yeah. So how much of a problem would it be for you if Sue Gray presses on with banning alcohol from parliamentary estate, and what proportion of your stories come from drunken slip-ups?
I think the first thing that Sue Gray should do is stop subsidising all the booze in Parliament. You know, although the guys who've got parliamentary passes will not approve of that. But basically, the cheapest place to drink a bottle of wine overlooking the Thames is Parliament. And the parliamentary administration loses millions a year, and they pretend it's these poor, underpaid staffers who are getting subsidised meals. We'll pay them better. You know?
Yeah.
So I think she could start with that, but I don't think there will be a crackdown on booze. There would be pandemonium if that happened.
So what do you think about MPs' pay in general, and like people that work in Parliament and their pay?
Well, I don't like it that it's a full-time job, so I have quite strong views on that. It was much better when it was a part-time job, but now you've got a welfare state to manage and all the details and regulations, and you know the size of the state is so much bigger than it was. You can hardly just pop it in the afternoons to, you know, oversee some legislation.
Yeah.
So I much preferred it when people, it's still a little bit like that in the Lords, where people have jobs or careers and they are more part-time.
Yeah, I was actually just reading about what time the parliamentary day would start, and it would be after the day in the city had ended. I just thought, you can't imagine that now.
Well, it also suited all the lawyers. There were lawyers on both sides.
Yeah.
So when they complain that they're underpaid, well, they shouldn't go into it for money. And I have a whole take on this, which is since the 90s, you do PPE at Oxford, you go work for the party machine or an MP's researcher or a campaign or a think tank or a little bit of lobbying, you get to become an MP, then a minister, and you've never done a day's work in the real world.
Yeah.
You've worked in politics all your life.
Yeah.
It's not good because you don't have any real world experience. You haven't had to deliver things. You haven't managed an organisation and people. And you spend the first few years as a minister failing to deliver. It's just inevitable. It's not the individual's fault. They are brilliant at politics. They're very good at media handling and sound bites, but they're not actually experienced managers of organisations. And you'll have a situation where somebody who's basically, you know, in the nerds in your politics groups and student campaigns is suddenly running the Ministry of Defence.
Yeah. Well, we just had this 22-year-old elected in Cambridgeshire, and what struck me as well is he went to Cambridge, and you're not even allowed a part-time job at Cambridge. So he's got zero experience, and what he said was his experience is, I've rented in the private rental. I was just like,
I'm sure his constituents think he deserves his £86,000.
Yeah, but then it just got me thinking, what would I make a prerequisite for being an MP? Like an age limit, or they have to have had a job?
I don't think you need a hard and fast rule, because there are the exceptions who would be brilliant.
I know.
But on a human level, if you haven't got any money and you're in politics, it's pretty desperate, as 170 Tories about to find out, that if they haven't got any money and you're unemployed, there's nothing so unemployed as an ex-MP. So in previous times, the Tories would take, you know, ex-army captains of industry, lawyers, people who, you know, in the late 30s, early 40s perhaps, who had a bit of money and, you know, had a bit of wanted to do something for the country in public service, but were already established, half paid the mortgage off and weren't reliant. Same on the other benches, you'd have shop stewards, teachers, lawyers again, but they weren't, you know, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And nothing I've got getting to 23 years old, some of my best children are 23. But it's kind of...
Best children.
it's kind of... Got no favourites, shouldn't have said that. They aren't... I don't think it's in their best interests to find themselves 40, kicked out of office, no money. You know, it's pretty poor.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You are really the only publication who pays close attention to the world of special advisors, and you've got the SPAD list, which is like used by everyone in Westminster.
Not now, we haven't, because the SPADs aren't established yet. So
No, but it's empty, but it's ready to go, right?
it's ready to go, and there may be alcoholic inducements for somebody to give us the official list at some point. It's going to be, it's bloody useful, that SPAD list.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we use it to keep track of everybody and where they are and where they go, and we also keep the historical record, so we know what they've done, and it helps you with a sort of, it's like a database, so you know who knows what, and you can guess, you can infer things from it.
Yeah, but it's that useful, so why is no one else doing this?
Because the official list is kept a closely guarded secret, and the reason for that is they don't want hundreds of lobbyists calling them. So we don't give out the phone numbers.
Right, of course, yeah.
So how do you stay critical of the Tory party as you are kind of in the world and you get to know them on a sort of first name basis, and it's hard to kind of wiggle out of their pockets and keep impartial?
Well, best thing is not to become friends with them. I think that's very hard if you're ideologically aligned with somebody, because at some point you're going to have to do them over. Otherwise it's not going to be good. And everybody has conflicts of interest, and you know people, and you've got sources. You can always see that in the lobby, and we're not immune to that. But I think 2 occasions where we've perhaps gone off the reservation and forgotten our place in the media ecology. I think when Cameron first got in, I think we were I was so overjoyed and happy and all that perhaps we were a little bit too gentle with him. I don't think he'd say that at the end. I know he would say that at the end. And obviously we were Team Boris very hard for a very long time, and perhaps we were a little bit too forgiving. But I really like Boris, and when people say to me, but why did you go down with the ship? We were probably the last people in the bunker. Well, look what happened. The Tories got wiped out. I don't believe that would have happened if Boris had stayed in.
You sound like Nadine Dorries.
Afraid I do, but I think my position on that is going to become more popular, and I think you're going to, when the leadership campaign goes, I think some of those candidates are going to say, it wasn't our smartest thing to get rid of.
Complete chaos since then, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was, like Nadine, I believe that Rishi's people had a role in Boris's downfall.
Well, and since then, I think the huge issue has been the leadership election that was not honoured by the members, and then it was just decided, like, Rishi was not elected. He was completely undemocratic election to have him in.
The same with the Labour Party when they put Gordon Brown in. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
So you'd think we'd learn, but no. I don't think there's any particular we can add. I mean, we can see it's been decimated. The Tories have been decimated. No, they haven't been decimated. It's worse. They've been halved. Rishi just wasn't a campaigner. I mean, he lost every election.
Yeah, it's true.
So, in 2013, you told The Guardian that the days of Gido being able to say you're complete outsiders are long gone. Due to being on first-name terms with cabinet ministers, will you become an outsider again with Labour?
Well, I'm not going to embarrass the Labour figures that I am on first-name terms with. Aren't that many, I have to admit. It's easier to be an outsider when you're outside the club that's in. So I think from that point of view, we will return to being more of an outsider. I never accepted that we were the establishment. I mean, the establishment, there was a charge, you're establishment. Really? I don't think, where's my knighthood if I was establishment? I mean, I'll take it.
Would you take it?
Would they offer it? It's really, listen, Ross Kempsell, who started out with Gido and is back at Gido, Lord Kempsell as we must call him, is now contributing and is covering for me when I'm away. He took his lordship. Good luck to him.
Have you read The Plot by Nadine Dorries?
Haven't read it. I have read the serializations, and I'm familiar with the details of it. And I know Dr. No. So she called me in when she was writing it and said, called me in upstairs on 5 Hertford Street. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Let's have a laugh here. She said, Paul, everyone says you know Douglas Smith. You know, is he really a terrible person? You know, did he kill someone? Did he has sex parties? Is he bad? And I said, Nadine, I have to stop you here because Douglas is one of my oldest friends in politics, and we were in politics when we were teenagers together in the Federation of Conservative Students.
Yeah.
And we go back a long way. And she's like, oh, yeah, everyone said you did know him. I said, and he's a great guy. And I'm going to say it again. He's done things that had to be done, that were for the good of the country, the good of the Conservative Party. He'll never get a gong. He'll be reviled. He's done tough things, but the country is better for it.
Speaking of the Federation of Conservative Students, which was famously shut down by Norman Tebbit for being too radical, you will remember. Do you know why a lot of the people involved got involved with the modernisation in the 2000s? Like,
Yeah.
Did they change their political views as they grew up, or...?
No. So what Nadine calls the movement, which I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard that term.
I actually love that.
I hadn't heard that term for maybe 40 years. You know. What great branding. So there were a lot of us who were big backers of Portillo.
Sorry?
Of Michael Portillo.
Oh, yeah.
Who was the original moderniser. You know, he had some sort of, well, I guess you'd be Cameroon ideas. And we felt that the old tunes had to be remixed. And certainly on the social liberal front, I know you won't be a fan of this, the Tories were just, you know, the anti-gay stuff, all that. That had to change. And I think the world had changed. And we were libertarians, most of us. So I've never really seen it as sort of the left of the party. I think it was the right modernising. And it was a lot of FCS people were behind, for instance, setting up Policy Exchange, which was key to the modernisation of the Conservatives.
Yeah.
You know, we swung in behind Cameron. You know, Douglas was the architect of a lot of that. So, did we really change, or did we change the Conservative Party?
Sorry.
I was going to say, do you have any good memories from the FCS?
Well, if you can remember it, you weren't really there. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was crazy times. You know, if you don't go crazy when you're a student, when do you go crazy?
Do you think it's a shame it doesn't exist now?
I think youth movements are always a problem for their parent parties. It's a universal problem. I mean, so the Labour parties, I don't know how they've managed to do it. So they've always had, the student wing has always been, since the 90s, Knowles has always been Blairite. And the Young Socialists in the constituencies has always been taken over by whatever left-wing campaign. So the Tories basically decided they'd had so many problems with the youth wings. So after FCS, they set up the National Association of Graduate Students, the Conservative Future. Does that still exist?
No, it was graduate students, collegiate, and young conservatives.
CCF, yeah.
Then they became Conservative Future.
Anyway, they basically make sure there's no democracy for the youth wing.
Yeah.
So that it's all appointees and suck-ups. Quite boring. Which does mean that you have all these other groups that come and go, ebb and flow. Yeah. And I think some of the think tanks have taken on a bit of a role of organising. The importance of a youth wing is that you develop your ideological cadre, you know, the people who are idealistic and will be the future of your party. So I think not having a democratic youth wing is a mistake because it energises the organisation to have internal elections, people hone their skills, their campaigning skills, all the devious political manoeuvres that you have to do politics. So, you know, it's safer, but is it good?
Yeah, I think the talks of setting up a reform youth wing, like, we talk about nightmares for the parent party, that's going to be...
Well, the parent party has its own nightmares with the membership.
Exactly.
You know, the youth wing would be even crazier. I think if I remember Young Independents, the UKIP youth wing always had, you know, problems of the usual kind. I think, quite a lot of young people have unsophisticated politics when they start out, and you've got to forgive them.
Well, they don't know the sort of consequences of doing something silly at a drunk ball or something.
Oh, social media killer.
Yeah.
One of my daughters will
completely.
not do any social media.
Really?
She has no footprint.
Wow.
Well-
Is that on your advice or?
No, she just thinks foolish faces, public places.
Teenagers and young adults in this day and age aren't having any sex. They're not being reckless at all. And it's actually having
it's true.
a
Drinking
bad
less,
consequence. Yeah.
having less sex. Although I do think that probably not having social media is a minority.
Yeah,
for young
probably.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a fact that teenage pregnancy has gone down dramatically.
I think too much, to be honest. I think you need a little bit to make a streetwise kind of society, because if we're basically risk averse now, not risk aware.
You think we should have teenage pregnancy?
No. As in, like, young. You need a society that people make a few mistakes in, so we're a bit more aware.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, rather than, because we'll actually
Like
lose
let
our
a few
minds
people
if we don't.
suffer.
We know, but
for the better of us.
we need a bit of sharp focus on things sometimes. And
My daughters went to girls' school, and I noticed when I was picking them up, the kids would be vaping around the corner and all that
Really?
kind
yeah,
of stuff.
they need. I think we need a bit more of training to be streetwise, and I think got to take the rough with the smooth to have a sort of general mindset of the realities of life.
You might think differently when you have kids, though.
Yeah.
Got to be careful here. I do think they should enjoy themselves. I think they should enjoy themselves immensely and experiment and get that all out of your system at university.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the best place for it. It can all happen, and I don't have to know about it.
Yeah, that's true. It's not on your doorstep. It's not in your house.
Yeah.
So
It's so funny. When my mum's found out about things I've done by complete mistake, an accident, she's
was his name?
She's well, their names. I'm joking. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just embarrassed Fleur. But I know my mum has done way worse, and she's lost her mind over certain things, and I have to remind her. She's done them as well, but you just, as a parent, you can't bear to hear it, can you? You just got to be clever enough to hide it.
It's when I was around a friend's house, we were having a bottle of wine, and his daughter came down, and I remember when she was a toddler, and I'm not going to say she looked like a hooker,
My mum has said the same to me.
but the skirt was very short, and I just looked at him, and he said, "It's all to come to you." So,
Yeah. Oh, my mum doesn't hold back. I once said to her, I FaceTimed her and said, "I'm going on a date tonight. Like, what do you think of this outfit?" She said, "Fleur, you look like a hooker." Like, she just tells it to me straight.
was that the look you were going for?
Absolutely not. I wanted to make a good impression. But yeah, it's funny. My mum was very straight-laced. My dad was the complete opposite. And both of them are equally sort of protective over me. But I am the only daughter, so I don't know.
Like I said, I don't want to think about it too much,
Yeah.
and I look forward to them going to university and things happening.
Outside.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a mistake to merge all three bodies into a Conservative future in 1998? It was my birth year.
Yes, probably. I think a little bit of competition is always good, and I can remember Nick Robinson being chair of the YCs when I was in
Really?
FCS. Yeah, whatever happened to him? And it was always, they were very wet, and obviously FCS was not.
Yeah. Oh no, I was looking at some of the previous leaders of the FCS actually. Andrew Neil was one. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's got a long history. I can
Yeah.
imagine it was, but
Like some big names.
yeah. And sort of my FCS generation are all over the place. BBC.
Yeah. And then there's the Monday Club.
Yeah, that wasn't really my thing.
No.
But I think it disappeared now, hasn't it? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's long gone. It's funny because a lot of, I think, young Conservatives are quite nostalgic for that era, but no one's ever tried to reignite those old groups?
Well, I sometimes speak to student groups, and they'll be said, they're quite a right-wing crowd, and then I talk to them, and I've realised they're quite middle of the road. So I don't know what's changed, but when I say right-wing, I just mean right-wing in the sense of economics and free market fundamentalism and small state, not. I think so. Something like immigration has become more mainstream right-wing views.
Yeah.
But that's not just students. That's everywhere. The whole world has become.
Well, how can we ignore it?
become firmer on controlling immigration. Well, firmer in wanting to, but not actually succeeding.
Yeah, because they don't listen to us. So you think the students that you speak to today are quite different from when you were a student, the conservatives?
Yeah, we were reading more ideological books. Hayek was very popular in the 80s.
They don't read.
My kids get all their information from TikTok, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
YouTube.
I really found when I was at university, no one was very well read. Even like the stuff that we were asked to read in the reading list, they were just like there's no interest. It's because it's just that route that you go down. Yeah. No passion for it.
My oldest daughter, to my amazement, is doing PPE.
Wow. Where's she doing that?
I'm not going to say because. She dreads coming home and me saying, "What were you doing last week?" She'll go, "I was doing Socratic dialogue." I'll go, "Oh, what do you think of the?" And she hasn't read anything but the set text.
Yeah.
So she can't talk around the subject. Now she has 20 hours of scheduled time. I don't think I ever did 20 hours of anything. I think 20 hours a month was about what I did.
But she's got to go to parties.
I realise that.
The reason's going to get in the way.
Think people should go to university.
I realise that. She's quite set on getting a first, so she's not partying that hard. She's got a set mind on it.
I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
Yeah, apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Oh. She's working a lot harder than I did.
Yeah, you dropped out, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, the campaign's over, but during the election campaign, you were hinting a bit about, Guido was hinting a bit about Keir Starmer's personal life, but
we never got the story to fly.
Well, no, more that no one else. But no one else was talking about this apart from Gido. Is that because journalists and editors want to stay on the side of the incoming government? Like
there was
in
a
the
bit
case
of that, and there was a bit of those type of stories you can never prove.
Yeah,
unless
libel.
You've got a photographer outside at night time and in the morning, shall we say? So it's very hard.
Like I got him.
Very hard to stand up.
Yeah.
And just because everyone knows or everyone says doesn't mean
it's tough.
So we tried it from all different angles, and people enjoy, as Lord Leveson said to me, a mosaic of information.
Yeah.
Could put it together. And I think basically a lot of people knew what the Mail and the Telegraph were getting at when they were saying, "Where's Vicky?"
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But
where's the ring?
Truth is, where's the ring?
He's still not got it back on.
Maybe he's just putting a bit of weight. It happens.
Maybe he's following Prince William, who also doesn't wear a ring.
Is that true?
I don't wear a ring.
Apparently, it's the traditional thing to do.
Well, I don't wear a watch, so I don't like.
Either.
I think that story isn't over yet.
Oh.
Okay.
Interesting. Heard it here first.
But when it is a story, do you think that the mainstream press may avoid it to stay on the side of?
Well, they didn't do it with Boris, did they?
No, but we had Alan Rusbridger, who allegedly covered up New Labour's pension plans in the Guardian. He was Guardian editor.
The week before, yeah.
So it's been done before.
I think look, I'll tell you something. The Telegraph were trying to stand up that story desperately. They had people on it. They had people flying all over the world, knocking on doors, doing everything they could. They believed that story. but they couldn't prove it. And if you can't prove it, you can't run it. Now, Keir Starmer's a KC, he's a smart barrister. We all know, anyone who's a barrister knows that if you don't confirm it and everyone keeps quiet, it can't run.
And he's just going to be super careful.
I don't know. I mean, people did ask questions that were quite on the money. How many children have you got? But did anyone ask him if he'd ever been faithful to his wife? I don't think anyone did they? Unfaithful.
Not that I heard.
With Boris got asked that loads of times.
What did he say?
Yeah.
He said he doesn't comment on his personal life.
The thing with Boris is everyone saw him as your mate. He's Boris, he's not Johnson.
It was priced in, as they say in the trade.
Yeah.
But, Starmer's drug taking, and I'm quite happy to say that because he told me, right? He's never answered the question.
Yeah.
Because he knows that he did take drugs.
Yeah. What is it? I enjoyed myself at university. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
And he's sort of, I think the reason he can't admit to, like a lot of politicians admit to smoking a spliff when they were at university, is because he put people in jail for it. Yeah. He was the DPP. So it's the same problem that Gove had, because he signed off teachers being struck off for doing cocaine, right? So if the Director of Public Prosecutions has broken the laws that he's prosecuted people for, it's kind of awkward.
Do you think it solves more problems to be honest about that, or does it actually make it more complicated?
Well, it's always good to be honest and tell the truth, but it'd be very difficult for him.
Yeah. There's just so much hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Like him pushing for stricter lockdown rules whilst breaking them himself.
Yes. So you said in 2013 that you hate politicians. In
general, I hate the political class. I still think that it's...
Apart from Boris.
Apart from Boris. I still think that most politicians end up being venal and self-serving and do make decisions that are in their own interests rather than the best interests.
So is working in Parliament quite an exhausting place to be, because everyone's in it for themselves and just sort of it's very, very uncomfortable backstabbing.
Everyone wants to climb the greasy pole.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and actually the ones who aren't ambitious to climb the greasy pole or have that knocked out of them tend to be the ones who do all the expense fiddles and go on the junkets and, take lobbyists' lunches and all that. Those who are ambitious and have a career in front of them tend to be better behaved. There's a sort of self-regulating aspect of being extremely ambitious. But look, there are a lot of idealistic good people in Parliament as well, but it gets knocked out of people. I mean, people tend to start out idealistic. There's an old Robert Redford movie, The Candidate, where he starts out idealistic, and by the end of it, he's made so many compromises. Let's just move this. Let's not push this legislation because a donor's done this. Look right now, Labour's biggest donor. Well, Labour has just abolished all the restrictions on land wind farms. Remind me what their biggest donor's business is.
Wind farms? Is it?
Dale Vince.
Oh.
Cubono.
Yeah.
Cubono.
Well, that is a surprise.
I'm sure there's no evidence to suggest there's any relationship.
Yeah.
And we're not suggesting there's any kind of skullduggery. It's just a hell of a coincidence.
It's possible that he thinks this is the best thing for the
country. Possibly a good
country.
policy. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it's convenient.
I hate them. and I hate.
The Attorney General gave 5,000 to Keir Starmer's leadership campaign.
Yeah. Oh, what a mess. But it's never going to change, is it?
No, and I don't think state funding in politics is a good idea either.
Right.
Because that will entrench things. You'll never get another party come up if you give the incumbent parties have already got massive advantages, and if you introduce more state funding, it'll be even worse. So, and in a way, I think the American system where big money gets involved, it kind of means that capital or capitalism has a stake in the democracy, and it means that just isn't just about the numbers of voters. So you can temper things. There are some good parts for there being money in the political system.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about that. It
So-
kind of makes sense, but
So otherwise, it's if there wasn't money in the system, then it would just be majoritarian.
yeah. What are your thoughts on first past the post?
Well, it gives decisive outcomes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny when Matthew Elliott was doing the No to AV campaign, when that was first muted. It was sort of a practice run for Brexit. He came to see me to help out on the digital side, and he said, there's going to be a referendum on voting reform. That's part of the deal with the Lib Dems. And I said, oh really? Yes, it's going to be alternative vote versus first past the post. Would you like to help? And I said, which side are we going to be on? Because all electoral systems have their flaws. Proportional representation is fair in some ways, but it does lead to weird coalitions. Italy, Israel. I mean, they have elections every week. I'm exaggerating, but they quite often have elections because they're unstable coalitions. In Ireland, we have proportional representation, and I feel that it means the centre always wins.
Yeah.
Which is good in some ways if you don't like revolutions and radicalism, but given I happen to be on the radical side of politics,
You and me
it's
both.
kind of I think it's always been the left always liked first past the post because it's the way they thought they were going to get socialism in Britain, and the right kind of liked first past the post because they thought that's the only way we're going to get another Thatcher. So I know Nigel feels that, but if we had proportional representation, we would. The Lib Dems would always be in.
And that would be a neutral opinion from me. Okay, we've got time for one last question. And it's something that I've always wondered. Has Gido ever put out a story that you've regretted?
Oh, good question.
Well, we do have a delete button, and things do disappear. Even years later, I'll get an email from somebody who said, 10 years ago, you wrote a story about me when I was in Young Conservatives or Students or something like that, and I'm going for jobs now and it's coming up on the search. I'll take that down.
Oh, that's so
good.
kind.
That is
So
good.
we do that. I think you can make mistakes in the past and you can be forgiven it.
Yeah.
Story I've regretted. If I thought the story was a bad idea, not long after it going out, we'd probably amend it. I mean, we do go to great efforts to get the facts right. I mean, our take on it and our opinion about the facts, that's one thing. But the facts we try and get right.
Okay. No regrets.
No regrets.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Super interesting. And we will continue to enjoy Guido's evening email, as I do on my commute home. Now I'm living in London. But yeah, thank you so much.
Been a pleasure. It's been quite hot in here.
Very hot.
It's just getting hotter and hotter. At least we get some warmth compared to the weather outside under Starmer's Britain. Anyway,
Thanks, girls. It's interesting.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.